But when you're young, you really have two big things going for you because you don't really have any experience. You haven't really tried much in life, let's be honest. So you have two things going for you: your energy and the initiative that you take. The way you show up every day, whether that's to a one-on-one, a team meeting, a project, to your friends and family, you can control the energy and how you show up. And people want to be around people with great energy.
Welcome to Becoming Radical, the podcast for creators, builders, and dreamers just like you. What does it mean to become radical in a world of constant change? Hosted by Michael Gaizutis, each week we'll explore the real-time journeys of those rewriting the rules. From untold failures to groundbreaking success. If you're ready to break the boundaries of limited thinking, this is your guide to unlimited growth.
Welcome to Becoming Radical. We are so excited to be here with everybody again today. We have a very, very intriguing guest, very exciting guest, Robin Daniels, who is the Chief Business Officer at Zensai. Robin, it's great to have you here today. Thanks for taking the time.
Hey, Michael, man, it's good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. I know we've been talking a little bit before the show.
Yeah.
We've been learning a little bit more about our backgrounds, where you've been, where I've been, and it's been great. And, understanding someone's journey and someone's background, I think, is what's most compelling about someone, what makes them, both in business and the personal side. And, to talk about that a little bit more, you've really worked at some of the most iconic tech companies in the world. What drew you into Zensai? And, what problem are you most excited to solve here today?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long journey to get to where I am today. There's no doubt. I grew up poor in Denmark, Copenhagen, Denmark, to two parents who were very dysfunctional, got divorced when I was young. And at an early age, I became obsessed with technology and the impact technology could have in the way that we work and the way that we live every single day. I just love it. I'm an eternal optimist. I always think about the positive implications of what we do. And I always felt like the magic was happening in Silicon Valley in the US. And so when I was 21, I ended up quitting my job, kind of like rage quitting, as lots of people do nowadays. And I ended up buying a one-way ticket to California. It was February 1st, 2000. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a place to stay. I didn't know a single person. I'd actually never been to California. I just always thought to myself, I didn't want to look back on my life when I'm 50, 60, 70 years old and regret not having the courage to go. So I moved over there and I applied to every job I could find on Craigslist. And I ended up getting a lot of job interviews because everybody was hiring at that point in time, and ended up getting a job offer after a couple of weeks. I had just enough money, I figured, to last me about 2 months. I had about $2,000 in my pocket, and I stayed in like the shittiest hotels you can imagine. But when you're young and you're propelled by a dream, that'll do just fine. And then a month after I got here, I remember I was so excited getting my first job as a webmaster. A month after I got here, the whole market crashed, and I was like, "Oh shit!" The whole .com implosion. Fast forward, I spent over 20 years of my career in California. I love California. It's the thing that probably changed my life the most. And not everything I did obviously turned out successful. You got to take some chances when you're at the forefront of trying to push yourself. But luckily, I was at Salesforce in the early days, at Box in the early days, taking them public. Then at LinkedIn for a while. It was a small cybersecurity company in Palo Alto. Then I went to a company called WeWork that was a disaster. I was the chief marketing officer there. Then I went to another company afterwards called Matterport that I took public in 2021.
These are big names. Matterport.
Yes, it was fun. It was fun. And I would say that the silver lining between all of this, and so I've always been fascinated by technologies or things that bring us together. At Salesforce, I led something called Chatter. At Box, it's really a collaboration platform for teams. Obviously, LinkedIn is a platform where people come together and share and so on. And WeWork, in some ways, is a physical manifestation of that. So I've always been obsessed, passionate, but passion is not strong enough. We're really obsessed by how do we bring people together in the most positive way possible. And so at this company I'm at now, Zensai, we're scale up. My pattern recognition kind of kicked in, and I saw that. I joined Box and Matterport at about the same size. And of course, those are the companies that I've helped take public. And I just think, okay, we have something really special going on here. And
Yeah.
if I apply enough pattern recognition, strategic thinking, hire great people, this company could go all the way. So what this company
Very
does,
cool.
just to kind of lay it out quickly, is
Yeah.
we're basically a platform that's focused on making the people the best they can be every single day. We're a B2B platform for
Very cool.
companies to invest in the growth, development, learning, and skills of their people so they can find joy, happiness, but also growth opportunities for themselves and the teams that they work for. So ultimately, we're kind of like, if I had to put us in a category, we're an HR platform. We call
Mm.
ourselves the human success platform because I think HR is kind of a cold, outdated term that
Yeah.
nobody gets inspired by.
Yeah.
But basically, we fit in that category, but we're
Mm.
kind of a new platform that says the fact that 2 out of 3 people want to quit their jobs because they're not motivated, because they're not growing, they're not learning. We want to flip the script on that. We want to create a world where everyone's learning, growing, succeeding every single day, both for themselves, but of course also for the companies that they work for, because those companies will
Yeah.
end up doing better if they actually figure out how to engage their people deeply. We're just over 200 people. We're just
Wow.
around 40 million in ARR. We're growing fairly fast. I wouldn't say we're like a hyper growth company, but we're a
Yeah.
growth company. And we're going after a big market because you know
Amazing.
what, everybody is a target because everybody
Yeah.
works. you know?
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely. No, it's incredible. It's so cool. I mean,
uh,
I think when you really peel it back and you talk about the people layer to
mhm.
purposeful brands and companies and startups, the people are the
Yeah,
power, right? They are
yeah,
empowering those brands and those businesses and those
yes,
teams and those products and services. So yeah, it's very cool. And from what I understand, Zensai talks a lot about making learning a natural part of the flow of work. What
yeah.
does that look like typically in practice?
Yeah, so when I think about it, I am 100% where I am today. And you
Yeah.
probably are too, Michael. I mean, you and I have connected a little bit and we've talked a little
Yeah.
bit, but I'm sure I'm 100% where I am because so many people have invested in me, have invested in
Yep.
my growth and learning and giving me the skills and knowledge I needed to be successful, pushed me in
Absolutely.
directions that maybe I didn't even know myself.
Yeah.
And so we think about, in a lot of the companies I've worked for in the past, whether that's LinkedIn, Salesforce, you name it, I've had access to platforms that offered me learning and courses and kind of things, but I
Mm.
never did it. I'll be honest about it. I never really kind of ended up taking because I was always so busy with my work, and the reason why
Yeah.
it was always this extra thing that I had to go do.
Right.
Yet at the same time, I remember seeing this statistic when I was working at LinkedIn. This is in 2017, 2018. It said within
Yeah.
5 years, 90% of your skills and knowledge is outdated. 5 years. Think about it. And
Wow.
this is nearly 10 years ago. I'm sure now in 2025, in the age of
Like
AI,
5 minutes.
it's probably outdated in 2 minutes. Exactly. Right.
It's
So,
already
so if,
outdated as we're
so if
speaking.
you're not, if you're not learning the right
Yeah.
skills and knowledge to be
Mm.
successful today, but also for the future, you're going to miss out. You're going to miss out
Fascinating.
personally on growth opportunities, and your company, of course, is going to miss out because you're not going to be able to
Yeah.
grow as fast as you want to. And so, when we think about learning and growing in the flow
Mm.
of work, it means can we create a platform that is where the users are anyway? So we show up, for
Mm.
example, with
Cool.
Zensai in Teams or in SharePoint. We're not like like everybody would say,
Yeah.
well, we work in Teams, we work in Slack, we work in
Yeah.
SharePoint, and so on. But then you click on it, and then you have to go like
Mm.
log in somewhere else, and you forgot your
Yeah.
username, and now it's a different user experience. Our
All the
technology
time.
platform is in those platforms, and it looks like those platforms. So it's
Mm.
like it's natural. So if you're in Teams all day, right?
Yep.
Then basically it's like, oh, somebody will ping you and say, hey, have you thought about taking this course? Or this person is recommending you for something else. So it becomes a
Interesting.
natural part of your. So our adoption,
Cool.
our usage is way higher than the industry average when I think about other platforms that are out there.
Keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Integrate.
Exactly,
Deeply
exactly,
integrate.
exactly,
I mean, that's
exactly.
the key. The deep integrations, I think, are really the most impactful when it's
Mhm.
fluid and it's free
Yeah,
forming. You don't have
that's
to
right.
think outside of what you're used to. Don't make people overthink. That's
Completely.
great user experience, right? Great
Completely,
customer experience. So
completely.
you
And
guys nailed it.
it's
Yeah.
also it's easy for IT. I mean, even
Yes.
though they're not our main buyer, but IT
Yeah.
is always involved in the sale. When any new technology comes into an enterprise,
Absolutely.
IT is involved. So they just go, oh, it's integrated. Or it's not just integrated. It's even the wrong word. It's 100%
Right.
built on Microsoft.
Right.
Check. It's like instead of a 2 months due diligence on security and IT
Yeah.
integration, it's like, oh, it's great. So the check mark, the
Check the box.
implementation,
Yeah.
the sales cycle that we have compared to other companies I've worked
Yeah.
for is insanely short. And it's
That's
because
great.
people see it, they're like, oh, easy, because usually an
Exactly.
HR leader or somebody has to go talk to IT, then they have to go talk
Yeah.
to finance and all that stuff,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I've spent my career in B2B. I mean, I remember at Salesforce, we were really selling to enterprise or box. Some of
Mm,
these sales cycles were like 18 to 24 months.
it's
On
horrible.
average at
Never ends.
Zensai, it's about 2 or 3 months. I mean, it's
It's incredible.
radically different.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a very short sales cycle. That's incredible.
yeah,
And it sounds
yeah.
like it's because it's meaningfully
That's right.
easy to integrate
Mhm.
seamlessly into someone's
That's
life
right.
because it's
That's,
it's part of that natural
mhm.
process by which someone operates. Again, as you
That's right.
said, cross-platform, cross whatever they're doing, which is very
Totally.
cool. What do you think
Yeah.
is the big differentiator with Zensai in this
Mhm.
crowded space? And how are you positioning the brand for category leadership? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I've been through the category creation journey a few times,
Yeah.
and it's something that you can't really measure in
Yep.
days, weeks, months, even quarters. It's something usually that takes years.
Yeah.
Um, but there's a way to do it, and the truth, the reason why building a startup is so hard
Mm.
is because you really have to do two things at the same time. You both have to
Yeah.
compete in an existing category most of the time, which we do,
Yep.
and that's tough because you're competing on a turf and a playing field that other people
Mm.
have set. And then you also have to try to create a new category if you're so bold, because then you can
Right.
change the playing field to be more to your advantage ultimately. And the truth of
Exactly.
why startups are so hard, which I've again done with Salesforce and Box or
Yeah.
even like WeWork, because you're doing both. If it was just one or the
Mm.
other, maybe that'd be easy. But the truth of startups is you have to do both because, of course, you have to compete. I mean, we
Yeah.
compete at the highest end with Workday and SAP and
Oh,
Oracle,
yeah.
these companies with huge brands, lots more money, and so on, right? And then there's a lot of smaller players. Uh,
Right.
and of course, when I come into those conversations, they've kind of dictated the playing field in some way.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly having to prove why I'm better than them, and it's not always easy,
Right.
because they have the
No.
relationships and the brand. But if you do the category creation play well, then maybe you can
Mm.
change the terms of how you're actually being evaluated. And the
Yeah.
reason why you ultimately want to become a category leader is because you become the default choice. And when you're the default choice,
Mm.
it means that everybody else becomes compared to you. And so the
Oh.
category that I'm focused on is this idea of human success, this idea that
Mm.
HR is dead or antiquated, and human success, where you can empower people to be the best that they can be every single day,
Fascinating.
is the way to go. And I think you do that through storytelling and through brand.
Yep.
And we live in this
Yep.
golden age of storytelling. I mean, the fact that you can get your message out there in all these creative ways, whether that's TikTok or podcasts or
Yeah.
videos or whatever it
Yep.
is, right? It's beautiful. So
Yeah.
it's a golden time to be a marketer, and this doesn't have to
Yes.
cost a lot of money either, right?
No.
So the downside of this golden age of storytelling is that there's so much noise out there. So you
A
have
lot of
to
noise.
be willing to be bold. You have to be willing to be brave and put yourself out there. Have a point of view. If you just say something where people go, "Yeah, that's good," it's not really good. It has to actually
Mhm.
elicit an emotion, right? Ideally
Yes.
positive, but even a negative emotion is better than no emotion, right? So you want to
Yes.
like push the boundaries of storytelling and narrative. And today, luckily, there's so many great ways to do that. You just got to be bold. So, keyword in any CEO, chief marketing officer, whatever it is
Mhm.
courage. You have to have courage nowadays,
Yeah.
or else you're never going to survive. So, we're out there, we're trying saying HR is dead. The future is
Mhm.
human success, where we empower people to be the best that they can be every
Yeah.
single day.
It's
And the, and,
incredible.
the, and, the, and the thing that we're trying to do that's different, we're trying to quantify it. So we just
Right.
announced something called the Human Success Score. I have my Apple
Mm.
Watch, I have an Aura Ring on, and,
Ah.
and one of the things that we miss when it comes to think about people, everybody wants to invest in people. Every
Yeah.
CEO, if you ask them, what's your most important thing you have in your company? What do they
Yes.
say? People. They always say people, right? It's like, oh, people.
People.
And then because they don't really know how to make them grow or invest in them, they go right
Mhm.
back to kind of like just chasing growth at all costs. But it's like, hey, if you invest in people,
Mhm.
then you can actually get better growth. Like Richard Branson
Yeah.
said, he
Yeah.
said, clients don't come first, employees come first. If you invest in
Yep.
your employees, they will take care of your clients and customers. And
Yep.
so, but the problem is we haven't had a measurement of how to actually know whether or not our investment in people is
Mhm.
paying off. So we just announced something we call the Human Success Score, where
Hmm.
we basically are saying based on, and we're very much inspired by Strava or Ring,
Cool.
I mean, like,
Absolutely.
so when I wake up, I look at my sleep score as an
Yep.
example. Even
All
though
the time.
there's a lot of things that go into my sleep score, tons of things.
Mm.
My heart rate variability, when I went to
Mm.
bed, my breathing, all kinds of things. But it
Yep.
comes back with one score, and that one score tells me directionally, am I on the right track to actually hitting my targets,
Absolutely.
right?
Interesting.
And in business, we overcomplicate it. We think
Mm.
about retention metrics. We think about the annual surveys that we do.
Mhm.
But when you think about sales has ARR, Customer success has
Yeah.
NRR. Finance has, cash, how much cash do they have in the bank?
Yep.
But HR doesn't really have a metric. And that means
Yeah.
that they don't really have a seat at the table because the
Right.
CEO goes, yeah, I know we should invest in people, but I don't know how to measure it.
Yeah.
Tell me
How
a
do you
company that's
quantify
really,
that?
how do you quantify it, right? So
Mm,
we just announced a couple of weeks ago the human success score. And the goal
cool.
is to be able to correlate how people are doing, your investment in people. Are they growing,
Yeah.
learning, developing, connecting well to business
Mm,
outcomes? Are we seeing more growth, more revenue, more profit based on our
yeah.
investment in people? And usually there's a lag, right? If you
Yeah.
invest in people deeply over, let's say, the course of 3 months, you're not going to see an outcome instantly. You're probably going to
Right.
see it a little bit later. So it's a very hard thing to do. But we think
Yeah.
until we can crack the code on that, HR is always going to be kind of second fiddle. It's like it's
Right.
always going to be like an afterthought, this idea of investing
Right.
in people. And I'm so passionate about solving this because, again, we know
Pretty
instinctively
cool.
if you're learning and growing, then of course it's better for you, but it's also better for the business.
It's really exciting. I haven't heard or seen anything like that. And years ago, in another life, many, many years ago, I worked for a recruitment ad agency. And instead of selling the bottle of water, they were selling the idea of working for the company that sold the bottle of water. It's a recruitment ad agency,
Oh, yeah.
right? It's fascinating. But
Mhm.
it's interesting to see this because having this type of quantifiable mechanism, this metric, this
Mhm.
score, will
Mhm.
really help to empower brands and companies and teams to look at things differently, that people really do matter. You're absolutely right. Without the people, you can't have the thing that you're working on. It's not possible. So
Wow.
why is there not more emphasis on that? Why are we not looking at
It's
this at a higher value add than something else? Like if we're tracing sales or we're chasing finance or we're doing all these reports and looking at KPIs. Absolutely right. I love that. Um, you've led marketing and growth as kind of a
Mhm.
segue to growth at
Yeah.
LinkedIn, Salesforce, WeWork. You dropped all these big names, very cool names. Uh, how what lessons have stuck with you about
Mhm.
building high trust but also high
Mhm.
performance teams, and how have you carried that across to Zensai?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I do, I kind of have a playbook now with a few different steps. So
Yeah,
before I joined Sensei, I was out in the wilderness doing a lot of advisory work to a lot of great CEOs around the world, and I loved it. It was really fun, but it was also I miss being an operator. That's why I went back in. I really like getting
yeah,
my hands dirty and so on and building a
absolutely.
company. But it was really fun because I spent close to 2 years with great CEOs all around the world.
Cool.
And the number one question they had was really around how do I create a high performance team? How do I
Mm,
know that people are working on the right things? How do I hold them accountable? It's
right.
always at the best of times been hard. And then in a time where now people are going remote and you can't see them every
Yeah.
day in an office and so on, that question, of course, became even more, I would say relevant. So I created a whole playbook around this. And it's basically the instinctual learnings I've had over the last couple of decades of my
Yeah.
career, and I quantified it to create like a whole day course that I now have given, of course, to my company at Sensei, but also I give
Mm,
it to other companies who really want to level up and become high performing. But I would say there are
cool.
really kind of five core principles that I kind of try to institute the moment I go into a company, whether that was at
Mhm.
WeWork or at LinkedIn or so on.
Yep.
Number one is everything starts with clarity. It's
Mm,
nearly impossible to do great work if you don't know what you're trying to accomplish in the first place.
right.
And it's so clear to me that, of course, people like good news, they don't like
Mm,
bad news, but what's even worse is
yep.
uncertainty. And so the first
Mm,
job that you have as a leader is to give people crystal clear clarity on what you're trying to achieve. You don't have to tell
right.
people how to do their jobs or what to do, but give them clarity on what the goal ultimately is.
Right.
And it's so important. And it's not just because it makes greater business sense, but you also actually create a lot of joy in people. It's much easier
Yeah.
having joy at work every single day if you know what you're working for in the first place. The worst weeks,
Absolutely.
I don't know if you've ever had this, Michael, but I've certainly had it many times in my
Mm,
career. It's where I get to Friday night and I work
mm,
my ass off, but I don't really know if I achieved anything that was worth fighting for. But it was just fighting fire. It's just like answering the
yep.
emails, answering to this request, blah, 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 working my ass
Yep.
off. But I didn't feel like I moved the ball forward. But if you have clarity on what you're trying to do in the first
Yes.
place, then you can actually move the ball forward in very meaningful ways. So that, of course, helps the business, but also gives you joy. But everything starts with
Absolutely.
clarity. If you don't have
Absolutely.
clarity, it's very hard to achieve anything. So that's number one. So the moment I come into a new organization, I spend a lot of time with my team, but also with the rest of the executive team, trying to build out what is the 2, 3, 4, 5 goals to have. Not too many,
Yeah.
but you probably want to have a few, like,
Yeah.
and they should be stack ranked. Like I just came in, recently to my company, and I said, in the marketing team, we were doing some changes. Number one is build a repeatable and scalable revenue engine. Number
Yep.
two is build a brand that people love. Number three is
Mm.
become the sales team's best friend by giving them all the tools they need to be successful.
Yep.
And the point of doing all this is they're stack rank. Number one is
Mm.
more important than number two. And the reason, for example, that number one is more important than number two,
Right.
building a repeatable and scalable revenue engine,
Yeah.
is because rarely have I seen in my career that you get to do all the fun brand stuff if the
Mm.
engine is broken behind bringing in revenue, right?
Absolutely.
So there's, of course, a
Yep.
method to the madness, but it all starts with clarity. And so everybody
Yes.
in the marketing team now understands that this is the number one thing, this is the number two
Yep.
thing, and so on. Number
You need
two,
revenue. It's the fuel that powers everything.
of course, it's
Without that
nothing bad with
revenue,
revenue.
you're
No,
out of
no,
luck.
it's,
Yeah.
it is.
Hard to invest in anything when there's no revenue. It makes it really
Of
tough,
course,
right?
of
Yeah.
course,
Yeah.
of course.
So, yeah.
So that's number one. And I just
Yep.
for speed, I won't go into that detail at all.
Yes.
But so number two is around focus,
Yes.
because the thing that then gets you off of the track of hitting your goals is
Yep.
all these random requests coming in, and it happens.
Right.
The more junior you are,
Oh,
sometimes it's
yeah.
harder to say no to stuff. But as you get more senior, you get to.
Yep.
And I'm always like, use me as a shield. If you're not sure about something, talk to me. Then I'll go fight the battle. But
Yeah.
if you can make people focus on the things that matter, that's a
Yes.
second key skill. It sounds again easy on paper. Oh yeah, easy. Just sit down for and like do this. There's always
Yeah.
random requests that come in. This is just nature of
Of
being in growth
course.
mode.
Yeah.
Number three is around then holding people accountable, both yourself,
Mm.
your team members, and the entire team. That also requires you have clarity on what you're trying to achieve, what
Yes.
KPIs you're trying to meet, but also having a culture of courage where it's okay to have the conversation and ask each other,
Yeah.
hey, Michael, what did you achieve this week? And if you don't start building that in, and it becomes kind of like, oh, I'm afraid to ask my team what they've
Yeah.
achieved. There's nothing wrong with accountability as long as you're not being an
No.
asshole about it, right? Just like,
No. No.
and the thing that we've instituted, because we do this on a weekly
Yeah.
basis, it becomes much easier to have the real conversations where I can lean in as a
Mm.
leader and serve you. So
Yep.
instead of me finding out at the end of the quarter that you didn't achieve three of the five things that you were set
Mhm.
out, if we have a conversation every week about this, even if it's
Yep.
5 or 10 minutes, I can go, hey, how can I help you? What are you not getting
Right.
that is stopping you from achieving your goal? Do you need more skills, resources? Should we take
Yeah.
this off the plate? It has made me a much better leader because I can
Yep.
also become a servant to them in some ways and getting them to be the best they can be. So that's number three.
Absolutely.
Number four is urgency. Like the
Mm.
best teams in the world, they have an innate sense of urgency. They don't wait
Right.
till the perfect moment. They don't wait till tomorrow. They're like,
Yeah.
okay, let's chase this down. Let's get this done. They have like this
Yeah.
fire with them. And that's sometimes hard to build, but that is the
Yeah.
alchemy of bringing great people together who have kind of different skill sets, right? And
100%.
who have alignment on their goals. So urgency is really important. I think the best teams in the world, they have that just desire
I
and
agree.
fire. And then
100%.
the fifth thing, the final thing is recognition. And the reason
Mm.
why recognition is so important, but oftentimes gets forgotten, is because recognition is the fuel that sets the bar higher constantly.
Mm.
Because if you just wash over all the things that people work on and you never stop and recognize
Right.
it, but if you do and say this was great work, but of course next time the bar will be set even higher. But it also gives
Mhm.
people just a sense of satisfaction that I matter, I belong, people
Yes.
care about the work that I do, and it doesn't have to be
Yep.
huge recognition like publicly, where this person gets. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's just a pat on the back or a high five or something, but just something that says, hey, the thing that the team worked on, the thing that you worked on,
Mm.
it was awesome. That
It's
fuels the
huge.
desire to go even further the next time. So those are the 5 core principles that I've now tried to institute in a big way
Yeah.
here at Zensai. But I really am out there talking about this all the time because I'm so passionate about this is how you build high performance teams.
Right. I think the recognition piece is fascinating. We're not recognized enough. We're not recognized enough professionally and even personally. And I think it's really important. If you look at sports as an example, any kind of sport, right? It could be basketball, tennis, football, baseball. It doesn't matter, right? It could be
Mhm.
soccer, football overseas, right?
Yeah,
Uh, Without that recognition, just that inner recognition within your team,
Mhm.
within the composition of those around you, closest to you, family, friends. Same applies in business, right? When you're not
Mhm.
recognized, you almost sometimes feel defeated. It almost feels like
100%.
blind with that
100%.
clarity in the beginning because you're not you're not seeing the actuality
Mhm.
of moving the needle. You're not moving the bar, right? So I think the recognition, even the micro recognition, is so key.
Yes.
And I like to say it's the micro recognition that helps you in becoming radical because
Yes.
it's
Yes.
pushing you, it's enabling you, it's
Totally.
validating you. And without the validation, sometimes as builders, we get lost in self validation. We're like, well,
Mhm.
and maybe
Mhm.
there's that constant conflict. I know I have that for
Yeah.
myself. You're
Yeah.
building and you're like, wow, this is really cool. And then along the way, you're trying to pep yourself up and be like, oh, this is great, this is great. But then you're like, oh, this didn't work. Uh-oh.
Oh,
And then along the way, somebody says something to you, and it's
mhm.
that little thing, that little micro bit of
So
recognition that
true.
just pushes you over the edge and enables you and gets you to say, wow, I'm actually doing something worth doing, which tracks you back to what you said,
That's
Robin, clarity. And it says,
that's right.
this is why I'm doing this, because I'm talking with Robin and we're creating this
Yeah,
impact together. And
that's
now
right.
from this conversation, we're going to impact 1,000 or 10,000 or a
Yeah,
million people around the world, maybe 100 million, right?
that's
So it's
completely.
like that little micro recognition, even small, even a comment, even a like, even
Uh-huh.
a hey message,
Uh-huh.
it works and it goes a long way. So
It's
phenomenal.
I think it's one of the most forgotten
Yes.
tools that a leader has to
Yeah.
raise the bar, and it doesn't have to cost a lot. It doesn't have to take a
No,
lot of money. It's just these
no.
small things I care about. Most people have an ego. Most people have a sense of
Right.
self-worth. Of course they do. And you being
Right.
able to recognize that really
Yeah.
goes a long way. And without it, exactly what happens, what you just said is
Yeah.
over time your motivation just deflates. Like nobody
Oh, yeah.
cares. Nobody's paying attention to what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just
Exactly.
it's so hard. I mean, there's so many books that have been written about motivation and
Yes.
purpose, and some of them are great. A lot of them are great, I would say, and
Yep.
some of them are just kind of BS. But I actually think
Yeah.
you can simplify
Yeah.
this. If I'm honest, Mike, you can simplify it to two things. You can simplify it to: do you know what you're working for, and are you passionate about
Mm,
the thing, and do you feel like you're making a difference towards that goal?
right.
If you don't really care what you're working for, it's very hard to be motivated. Let's be honest. And if
It
you
is.
don't feel like you're actually making a difference, like a small thing every day towards
I
that,
know.
it's very hard to be motivated. I've seen this
True.
time and again. It's like if you don't believe in what you're working for, fuck, life is too short. Go do something else. And
It's
if you
too
don't
short.
feel like you're in a place where you're valued and making an impact, go do something else. Go to a place where
Absolutely.
you're happy, right? So those
Absolutely.
are the two things: impact and purpose.
Yes.
They have to be
Amazing.
there.
You talked about something really interesting.
Mm.
Things move fast now, right? So, how
Yeah.
do you
Yeah.
approach leadership when navigating these fast changing
Mm.
environments, lightning fast? We have AI, we have rapidity of technology, we have whatever's coming next. Who knows? Next thing, right? Next, someone is inventing the next thing right now in the
Yeah.
millisecond we're speaking here. How do you navigate that? As we
Yeah.
approach leadership specifically.
Well, first of all, I don't think it's easy because I
Mm,
think there's so much hype around certain things, but there always has been, right? I mean,
yes.
AI is the latest thing, and it is moving radically fast. Let's be honest
Yeah.
about it. But
Yeah.
at the same time, that was true of cloud, mobile, internet, and so on.
Yeah.
So you always feel like you're a little bit behind on things,
Yep.
and some of that I think is good to have a little bit of that FOMO, so you feel like I need to raise my game.
Yep.
The thing I would recommend is your job as a leader is to kind of show up and make sure that people are focused on doing the work that you've set out to do,
Yes.
having the skills and tools they need every single day. But I also would highly recommend you get out of your own bubble, talk to
Mm,
people, realize that what you maybe read online or what you see is not always reality. So, for example,
right.
if I were just to go on LinkedIn or Twitter or X,
Yep.
whatever it is, I would feel like I am so behind when it comes to AI, and I would
Yep.
just basically be freaking out every single day. And I probably
Yep.
would be driving my team crazy with like, why are we not doing more on this? On AI here,
Exactly.
the product, and the marketing, and so on.
Yeah.
It was so. For example, in March, I went to an event for
Mm,
150 GTM leaders, and it was a small event. It was in Arizona. Great GTM
mm,
leaders, CROs, CMOs, and so on from all over the U.S. and even the world. And instead of
yeah.
big keynotes and presentations, we were all kind of organized into small groups who would talk about various topics throughout the day.
Cool.
And in my group, my group changed over the day, but a lot of it was around AI, for example. And the truth is, we went around and talked about on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you
Yeah.
feel like you are with your AI implement? And these are like some of the hottest brands in Silicon Valley, just to be clear.
Yeah.
And most of them are like, I'm a 3 or 4. So everyone
Yep.
feels like they're behind because they're
Exactly.
all just getting started. They're seeing some use cases early days that are like looking
Yeah.
promising, but others is kind of honestly BS, but it's not really any result of it.
Right.
and they don't really have a cohesive AI strategy across their business. They have like a little bit in marketing, a little bit in finance, a little bit in sales
Little
that they're
bit.
doing, and so on,
Yeah.
little bits of the stuff. But it was
Yep.
what I really felt leaving that event. Yes, I made a lot of great connections and learned some new things, but it was really that my FOMO was eased tremendously because I felt like, okay, I'm not alone here.
Yeah.
Because if I just spend my time online, I feel like, holy crap, I'm so behind on anything that's happening. But here, everyone felt like they were behind
Yeah.
because we're constantly being hyped up
Yeah.
around this. That's not to say you shouldn't stay on your toes and so on, but I take that energy back,
Yeah.
of course, to my team and try to guide them, both the executive team, but also the team who works for me every day, and say, hey, we should absolutely push the boundaries, but also realize
Yeah.
that it doesn't change the fundamentals of work in some ways, right? For example, marketing. Um, in marketing, you still have to have some core soft skills, communication and courage and
Yes.
creativity.
Yep.
Like AI can automate a lot of things and they can push the boundaries, but it's not going to replace a lot of the things that, for example, a
Yeah.
marketing team does yet. Some of the things for sure, it'll make it better,
Right.
but it won't replace
Sure.
it. So in this time when everything is moving fast, but it was the same honestly when
Yep.
I was working at Box, Salesforce first, and then Box when Apple released their iPhone, and then they released their iPad, and just the hype
Yeah.
around this, and oh, we got to move so fast to release an iPhone app and then an
Yep.
iPad app, and we had to. The pace was relentless, so I
Yep.
feel like it's a little bit the same. Like you got to, of course, be willing to lean into it, but you should also not let it freak out or let
Yes.
it like dictate your entire strategy either. Yeah.
Exactly. 100%. Yeah, I agree. AI is reshaping everything. I mean, we talked about that,
Yeah.
where we're talking about that now, including how we
Hmm.
learn. I mean, how we're absorbing
Yeah.
content, information, what's to
Hmm.
come, who knows? It's moving very fast.
Yeah.
How is Zensai thinking about AI as a force multiplier, not a replacement directly?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm very much on the side that I don't want AI to replace humans, or
Yeah.
I don't want to have that in our product, and I certainly don't want to have that in the world either. I think AI
Yep.
can be the best superpower for all of us to live our best lives, learn the things that we need to learn to be successful. So the way I think
Yep.
about it at Sensei is, and we already have AI as integrated and built into so many parts of the product. And we think about
Sure.
three different core audiences. For the learner, the employee who's showing up every day and just wants to do their job and become the best they can be, learn the skills for today, but also for the future. We have AI in there inside the product that's like pushing you into learning the right skills at the right time because we know what skills
Cool.
you have and what you should be developing. And we can do that by nudging you. We can do it with your manager assistants.
Yeah.
We can present the right content for you on courses and so on. But based
Yep.
on what I know about you, I can say, hey, or AI can say, you should take this course on public communication, or you should be taking this on
Right.
time management, or you should
Mm.
maybe learn about how to optimize, digital marketing, and we can insert all those moments so you become the best that you can be every day.
Cool.
But the more we know about you, the more we can insert that. So that's for kind of the learner.
Right.
For the manager, one thing that we've just implemented, for example, is AI powered coaching. Actually,
Oh,
we came out
wow.
with that in the end of last year. So, for example, when an
Cool.
employee says something to their manager, instead of
Hmm.
them, and of course, we're talking about written or verbally it's recorded, then the
Yeah.
manager can use AI to figure out how to best respond in a compassionate or
Mm.
empathetic way that actually gets the employee
Right.
to understand the real issue, maybe learn and change their behavior, or maybe even become better
Yeah.
than this. So the AI coach helps the manager become the best version of
Yeah.
themselves. Right? Nobody's born a great manager. You learn over time. Like when I first became a manager, in the two
Yeah.
decades, I was probably pretty shit at it. But over time, I've learned, I think, how to do that, right? But
Yeah.
again, people invested in me. If I can think of that, if we can use AI to invest in people's skills and growth, so that's a great thing. And then, of course, the third
Exactly.
audience that I think of is the executives who wants to know,
Right.
how is my department doing? What skills are we lacking here? Can we then use AI, of course, to go in and give a much better picture and give you the roadmap for the future using this idea of the
Yeah.
human success score? The human success score is not just
Exactly.
a score that you get, but it's also for executives to see, here's where we're doing well, departments or countries or geographies and so on, and the actions I should be taking. So I don't want
Right.
to just present a number to people and then you go, what do I do with that? It should then be
Right.
the actions that you can take. Here's
Right.
the three steps or
To
five things you
improve
should
the
be
score.
doing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To
yeah,
yeah.
exactly right. And we
Yeah.
can, of course, use AI because again, the more we know about you and like, for example, in our company, we're a small company, just over 200 people. we're
Yep.
in 7 different countries, and even that is a
Wow.
challenge because you've got people
Yeah.
who have very different ways of looking at the world. Like the team that we have in the
Absolutely.
US versus the team we have in Denmark versus the team we
Yep.
have in Eastern Europe, they've all
Yep.
grown up with very different mental models. So, for example,
Absolutely.
it's very rare. We do this thing where on a weekly basis, people they do a check-in where they give themselves a
Mm.
score of 1 to 10 of how they're doing. And in the US,
Mm.
people are always like 8, 9, 10. They're fucking pumped
Yeah.
up, they're
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in Denmark, they're a little bit more measured. It's usually like 6, 7, 8. That's a
Yep.
that's a good day. And then in Eastern Europe, where they're much more stoic. I'm generalizing here. It's not all of them, but
Yeah.
more
Of
so.
course. Yeah.
They are like much harder on themselves. Their scores are oftentimes. So you have to also
I think
start
that's a
figuring
pretty
out that,
fair
right?
generalization. Yeah. I think that's
Yeah,
pretty
right.
fair.
So like the
Yeah.
US are always like everything's awesome, let's go, right?
Yeah.
That's not the same in a lot of other cultures or countries, right? So you
Right.
have to normalize for that too. Oh.
Right. No, it makes total sense. It's fascinating. And I think, being grounded is key, being grounded,
Mhm.
knowing where you stand realistically, and then knowing what you can do to improve it, to elevate it, to boost it.
Totally,
Because without
totally.
that direction, I mean, anybody has the capability to improve, right? So we just have to
Mhm.
figure out, what does that
Mhm.
look like and how does that help?
That's right. And
Looking
over
ahead.
time, over
Yeah.
over time, we want to be able to do this with leaderboards across industries,
Yeah.
anonymously, right?
Ah,
But so you say, "Hey,
interesting.
I'm a company of 500 people, and we're in the
Yeah.
manufacturing space. How do I compare to other companies with 500 people in the manufacturing? What are they doing that I'm not doing,
Mm,
or what am I doing better? So we can start actually getting
interesting.
nudges as well, right? Because then it becomes really it's kind of like what
Yeah.
you do with Strava or many of these other platforms,
Right.
right? You start like leaderboards and
Absolutely.
so on, right? It becomes a way for you to push yourself in a way that
Yes.
maybe you didn't even think of yourself, right?
It's very interesting, very empowering. Looking
Mm-hmm.
ahead, what is one bold prediction that you have about the future of work,
Mm-hmm.
and more importantly, workplace learning? What do you think will
Mm-hmm.
happen?
I think workplace learning and the future of work is going to change radically. That we're going to have to, in real time, be able to
Yep.
create the learning that people need based on the modality that they care about learning. So, for example, what I mean is some people like to learn by listening. Some people like to learn by
Mm.
watching. Some people like to learn by
Yep.
reading. Some people like to learn by doing, right?
Yep.
And so right now, I think the
Mm.
problem that we have in a lot of learning platforms, is that we treat everybody the same. And the truth is,
Yep.
no, everybody's different, and they like to learn. Sometimes I love listening. The reason I love podcasts, I will go for an hour walk and I'll listen to something, and it's a great way for me
Yeah.
to learn something new, right? Versus me sitting in front of a
Exactly.
screen and taking in a 1 hour course of some serious person who's like talking to me, like
Yeah.
my attention span just doesn't capture that. I just like doing other stuff, right? So it's like
You're busy. You
I
can't
think
you can't stay focused on that. Yeah, I understand.
all right,
Yeah.
exactly. So the future of learning to me is very much we know enough about you, Michael, where we presenting the learning opportunities. Sometimes they're small micro moments, sometimes they're bigger
Mm.
moments, right? We present them in the right format to you in the right moment based on what
Cool.
we know about you. Say, hey, you're about to record a podcast with Richard Branson. Here's some things you
Yeah.
should learn before you talk to him, for example, right? And then we present
Exactly.
that to you in a format that's optimal for you. That's how you
Perfect.
become the best that you can be every single day by consistently getting
Mhm.
that nudge into a direction that's right for you.
Yeah, that's so intelligent. I think that's so aligned with what we're seeing, especially in
Mhm.
today's day and age, especially as you look generationally, as you look to Gen Z and beyond,
Mhm.
the type of consumable content that exists, there's a delicate dance. There's this long
Yeah,
form content modality where people want to be absorbed, but then sometimes they just don't
totally,
have the time. They don't have the
totally.
energy. They don't have the bandwidth.
Yeah,
They're just disinterested. And you have to have quick content to support and validate the long form funnel, right?
completely,
So you're
completely.
absolutely right. And it changes. It'll change
Yeah.
by the day, by the month, by the year, as they get
Yes,
older, as
yes,
they get
yes.
younger. Well, Benjamin Button as they get younger, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Not
That's
so
right.
much, but as they feel younger, maybe. But no, it's fascinating. And I think it really supports your background too. You talk about this is what we're seeing now is that everything is the same in terms of the way people are absorbing content, but in reality
Mhm.
there's so many people that are unconventional and they're not the
Yeah,
same as everyone
that's
else,
right.
just like you
Completely.
you know in your global
Mhm.
career. And
Mhm.
I guess that brings me to another question for you. In terms of the risks you've taken and you're
Mhm.
glad that you took,
Mhm.
what would that look like? If you were to say, this is one risk that I took, I'm so glad I
Mhm.
took it, and also one failure that taught you the
Yeah.
most of anything, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I live my life in a way where I always think of like having minimal regret, right?
Yep.
It's like why move to the US in the first place over 25 years ago. And I
Yep.
still think of that. I try to always project myself forward 10, 20, 30 years and think about
Yeah.
when I'm faced with a big decision, would I regret not doing it? I'd rather have
Absolutely.
minimal regret than actually do it and then learn from it.
100%.
And WeWork is a great example. I mean, I was working at LinkedIn. I had a very senior position. They were
Yeah.
making good money. My stock was worth a decent amount. You know, it was Microsoft stock
Yeah.
because LinkedIn is owned by
Oh,
Microsoft.
yeah. Yeah.
And then WeWork came along, and I knew that, of course, from reading the stories, that the CEO was wild and crazy, but was a big visionary. They kept
Mhm.
asking me, kind of, do you want to join? And I kept saying no. And then finally one day they're like, hey, Adam
Mm.
Newman is in town in San Francisco. I'd love to meet with you. I'm like, I'm not that important that I can't take an hour
Mm.
with Adam Newman. So I met
Yeah.
with him, and he was just compelling and convincing. So I ended up joining,
Mm.
but it felt risky because I'm like, I'm coming from
Yeah.
something that was very stable and like, again,
Yep.
LinkedIn's not going anywhere, a billion users, and it
Yeah.
flamed out, but I don't regret it. I mean, I had a
Yeah.
blast. I learned a lot from that. I don't think it like hurt my career, in many ways.
Mm.
And it's because I tried to go in there with the mindset of how can I help make this a global movement around where we bring
Yeah.
people together. And I felt it was very aligned, honestly, with LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is
Right.
the place where people come together professionally to share, learn, grow. I
Right.
felt like WeWork could become a physical manifestation of that, where
Yeah.
a space where people physically come together to share, learn, grow. It didn't work out for lots of reasons that have been documented, but that was
Yeah.
one where it ended in public failure, but
Yeah.
personal like growth in some ways, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I still have a lot of the relationships. The guy I just hired at Zensai to run
Yep.
marketing, Donald McManus, he ran marketing for me at WeWork,
Oh,
so
wow.
and
Cool.
I hired him there. So he came in and I created a lifelong relationship. So in that
Yeah.
sense, is it really failure? I mean, yeah, I didn't make any
No.
money out of it, right?
Yeah.
So in that sense,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I grew and I created stories for life and a network for life that I will always
Exactly.
cherish.
It's fascinating. We as Americans, I grew up in the U.S., but
Yeah,
my
yeah.
my family immigrated from Eastern Europe originally,
Right, right.
and I work with a lot of people in Europe and all over the world, right? But
Yeah,
Europe,
yeah,
for
yeah.
example, just like you,
Yeah.
and the way we look at things here in the U.S. are fundamentally different culturally than everywhere
Mhm.
else, right? So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I choose just like you to live. I try not to have regrets. Things happen. Sometimes
Mhm.
you make the best decisions. You have to you have to make bold moves to create bold impact,
Mhm.
right? Sometimes they're
Mhm.
calculated, sometimes they're miscalculated. It happens.
Yep,
But what did you
yep.
extract from that? Like, how did that
Uh,
help
uh,
you at the deepest level to inherently grow and evolve and change? And the
that's
thing
right.
that you thought was a failure moved you forward in some
Yeah,
way. It's just a question of
totally,
how. And once you develop,
totally.
to your point, that clarity
Yeah,
of how the failure created that forward momentum to get you to where you are or where you're going, that's when the epiphany, the light bulb goes off. And you're like, wow, this
that's
is breakthrough, right? So I
well
think
said.
it takes a lot, and defeatism can be very real. I mean, you
Yeah.
could come face to face with, wow,
Oh
I was
yeah.
aligned with FTX and the crypto fiasco, and now look at me, I'm in the spotlight. This is not good. Even though I
Yeah.
wasn't directly involved, I was indirectly involved, right? So there's so many ways to look at it, but what
Mhm.
you get from it is what's really important. Same with our life, not just in business.
Totally.
I think it's what you
Totally.
extrapolate. So that's fascinating advice. It's
Mhm.
I think one of the best things we've heard. And
Mhm.
I guess it goes to another point. What really keeps you inspired and grounded amidst the fast
Mhm.
pace of tech and leadership and change? What is
Yeah.
your thing that grounds you today?
There's a couple of things. It's the day to day conversations I have with people. They're very radically different than what I read in the news or I
Yeah.
see online, right? I mean, like every time I could feel like my head is going down a dark and negative rabbit hole, I kind of just
Yeah.
try to ground myself by having real conversations.
Yep.
Then it doesn't matter if you're on one side of the political spectrum or
Yeah.
another, or where you grew up, or so on. It's like most people are good. They want
Yep.
success. They want to work hard. They want to
Absolutely.
have a great family. They want happiness. Most people, I think 99% of what we all want, we can find commonality around. And that always kind of grounds me. It's like,
100%.
okay, we're not as different as we're made out to be oftentimes
Yes.
online. I mean, my
Yes.
wife is from Wisconsin and her
Yep.
family, half of it are very liberal and half are very,
Yep.
conservative. And if you just saw what some of these people wrote online, you'd probably go, either way, they're not my people. But when you meet them
Yeah.
in person, they're all lovely people. They're
It's
so
so
nice,
different. Yeah.
They're so
Yeah.
nice, So
Yeah.
And then so that's what I do, like just on a I mean, I would say spiritual level in some ways.
Yes.
But then I try to go out in nature is my happy place. I try to exercise a lot. I exercise
Yep.
several times a week. That keeps me grounded.
Yep.
There's a lot of things I do to just kind of create an optimal version of myself. I'm not trying to be one of
Yeah.
those life hackers where every moment of my day is
Yeah.
planned. I don't think, honestly, to me that sounds a little awful. But I also want to have room for spontaneity and life.
Yeah.
But I also, of course, want to be the best version of myself. So
Yep.
I want to eat healthy. I want to exercise. I want to, and
Yes.
the reason I do all that, to be clear, is for one reason only: is I care a lot about the way I show up to people, to my
Yeah.
team, to leaders when I'm speaking at an event or something. So my energy is my superpower, and if I
Yep.
don't have optimal energy because I haven't been sleeping well or exercised
Right.
or whatever it is, I'm around the wrong people, then my energy
Yep.
suffers, and then I'm not
Yeah.
at my best. And so
Right.
that's why I do it. It's not because again I want to try to optimize every part of my life. It's just to me, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm like, great, good for you. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
you
absolutely. Yeah, no, I totally get it. And I think that's cool. The balance as it supports what you do and how you do it
yeah,
and how you show up is key. And there's so
yeah,
many external factors. And you're right, the more you can support yourself to be the best version of you, that's what
yeah,
matters. So I think that's
totally.
phenomenal and it makes total sense. If you could go back in time, which we can't, I have these conversations a lot with people. They're always like to me,
Mhm.
if I could go back, I would do this. I don't look at it that way. But if you
Yeah.
could, right? If
Mhm,
you could
mhm.
go back and you could give your 25-year-old self, 20-year-old self, one piece of advice, or to someone tuning in today, they could be
Yeah,
20,
yeah,
25, 30, 40, who knows, 50, 60. If you could give
yeah.
them one piece of advice, what would it be? What would be the one piece of professional advice, life advice, anything in becoming radical and changing the game and challenging the market and trying to look at things differently, better, or both? What would you do?
But when you're young, you really have two big things going for you because you don't
Yep.
really have any experience. You haven't really tried much in life, let's be honest. So you
Yep.
have two things going for you: your energy and the initiative that you take. The way you show up every day, whether
Yep.
that's to a one-on-one, a team meeting, a project, to your friends and family, you can control the energy and how you
Yeah.
show up. And people want to be around people with great energy. That's just, I think, a
Yes.
proven fact. The second thing is initiative. Find things that are worth doing that nobody
Yep.
else is doing and grab those things and lean into them. That could be projects at work, it could be things that your boss is not doing, and so on, right? And
Yeah.
so I wish I would have told my younger self to
Yeah.
focus more on that versus focusing on trying to pretend to be so professional and grown up.
Right.
Just like show up with great energy and conviction and passion.
Yeah.
Fucking go for and take some chances on some things because if
Yeah.
it works out, everyone will notice. And if it doesn't work out,
Yep.
it probably wasn't worth doing anyway. And maybe you wasted a little bit of time.
Exactly.
So what? At least you learned something from it. Those are the only two
It's
things you can
huge.
control when you're young: energy and initiative. So
Yeah.
that's what I would say. Just lean into those two things.
It's so true. The energy you bring, it leads to the experience set. The experience
Yeah,
set drives you forward, and
that's right.
that creates a mechanism to evolve, to
Yeah,
change everything in the future. Even not maybe not right now, but in the
absolutely,
future as time goes by. So,
absolutely,
such great
absolutely.
advice. I appreciate it. I'm sure our listeners will too, and our viewers. Where can they find you, Robin? Where can they find you online? Where can they find you in real life? Where are you typically hanging out?
I am in three different places. Robin Daniels on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find. If you just search for my name, I'll probably come up as one of the first things. You can find me at robindaniels.co. That's my personal website. You can also go talk to my digital version of myself, where basically I've uploaded all my content, articles, podcasts, videos to this. So you can ask for marketing advice, career advice, and I'll answer as best as I can.
Yep.
And then you can find me on Zensai.com. That's Zensai.com.
Amazing. Well, this has been delightful. I'm sure our listeners, our viewers, anybody who's tuning in will follow you. We'll be cheering you on every step of the way. Would love to have you back as you continue
Yeah,
on
for
your
sure.
journey ahead. And we'll be cheering you on every step of the way. You're definitely becoming radical. I'd almost go as far as to say you are radical. You're changing the game, challenging everything, and we're excited to have you here. So thank you again for your time. It's been a brilliant conversation. I've learned a lot, and I really, it's very rewarding to hear about your journey and what you've been through and what you're going through. So thank you so much for the time today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for hosting me, Michael. It's great to see you.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon.
Thank you for listening to Becoming Radical. If today's episode sparked something in you, follow wherever you listen, join the conversation, and share it with someone ready to think beyond limits. Be unlimited, be bold, and become radical. See you next time.
Game over.